You know, when we think about recovering from an injury, our minds usually go to things like rest, maybe some physical therapy. But what if one of the most powerful tools for healing our most complex organ, the brain, is actually on our dinner plate? Well, it turns out our brains rely on specific kinds of fats in a huge way, not just for day-to-day function, but to actively rebuild after damage. Let's dive in. So let's just start with this one number because it's pretty mind-blowing. 60%. Yeah, that's right. If you take all the water out of your brain, what's left is over half fat. And this isn't just some passive cushioning. This fat is literally the architecture of your mind. It makes up your cell membranes, the connections between neurons. It's the physical foundation for every single thought you'll ever have. So that brings up a really big question, right? If your brain is mostly made of fat and it gets damaged, whether from an injury, from stress, or even from a poor diet, how in the world does it rebuild itself? Well, the answer is all about understanding how what we eat gives our brain the tools it needs to heal.
To really get that, we've got to first understand what's actually happening inside an injured brain. It's not just one single problem it's dealing with. It's more like a crisis on multiple fronts. So let's break down this whole challenge of recovery.
You can really think of this challenge as a three-part storm. First up, you've got inflammation. It's like the body's first responder, which is good, but that fire can get out of control. Second, there's actual structural damage. The cell membranes and connections are literally breaking down. And third, and this is a big one, an energy crisis hits. Brain cells are basically starving for fuel. Any real recovery plan has to tackle all three of these head-on. All right, so let's get into phase one, putting all the pieces back together, because before any real healing can happen, you have to repair the physical damage. You need the right raw materials for the job. And what are those materials? Well, they're called phospholipids. These are the main building blocks of every single brain cell membrane. A couple of the key players you might hear about are phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine. They are absolutely essential for keeping neurons properly built and flexible enough to talk to each other. The easiest way to think about it is this. If your brain is a damaged building, phospholipids are the new bricks and mortar. Simple as that. Without a steady supply of these specific fats, the repair crew, your body's healing systems, can't even get to work. Those damaged circuits just can't be rebuilt.
And that brings us to phase two, the energy rescue. Okay, so you've got the building materials on site, but what happens if the construction crew has no power? Well, an injured brain is facing a huge energy shortage, and this is where a different kind of fat has to come in and save the day. Okay, here's the technical term for the problem. It's a mouthful. Cerebral glucose hypometabolism. But what it really means is a massive energy crisis. See, after an injury, brain cells can become insulin resistant. They just can't use glucose, their main fuel, effectively anymore. So even if you have sugar in your blood, your brain cells are starving, and that kicks off a vicious cycle of even more damage.
So how do you get power to a brain that can't use its normal fuel? You bring in an emergency backup generator. And for the brain, that backup generator is ketones. While that main glucose pathway is broken, ketones can take a different route. They can completely bypass the damage. And where do they come from? They're made from a special type of fat called medium-chain triglycerides, or MCTs, which you find in things like coconut oil. It's an absolutely critical metabolic rescue mission.
Okay, so we've rebuilt the structure and we've restored the power. Now we're at the final and maybe most crucial phase, resolving the inflammation. And listen, this isn't just about stopping a fire. It's about actively cleaning up the mess and signaling that it's time to start the real regeneration.
You know, inflammation is a classic double-edged sword. You absolutely need that initial inflammatory fire to clear out all the damaged cells and debris. But if you let that fire just smolder, it turns into chronic inflammation, which actually stops recovery in its tracks. So the key here isn't just being anti-inflammatory, it's about being pro-resolution. That whole process has to be actively turned off. So what turns it off? Well, it's a group of amazing molecules called Specialized Pro-Resolving Mediators, or SPMs for short. You can think of them as the body's elite cleanup and resolution team. And here's the really cool part. They are built from omega-3 fatty acids, like the EPA and DHA you get from fish oil. So this means omega-3s aren't just kind of passively anti-inflammatory. No, they provide the actual raw materials to build the crew that actively shuts down inflammation and gives the all-clear for real rebuilding to begin. Okay, so we've walked through the three big phases: rebuild, refuel, and resolve. That's the theory. Now let's pull it all together into a practical toolkit. How do we actually apply all this? First things first, we've got to know the players on the field.
On the recovery team, our all-stars are the monounsaturated fats. Think olive oil and avocado. Then we've got our polyunsaturated omega-3s from fatty fish and walnuts. And of course, the MCTs from coconut oil. But then you've got the other team, the saboteurs. This is where you find high amounts of certain saturated fats and, worst of all, man-made trans fats from processed and fried foods, which have been shown to actually promote inflammation and get in the way of healing.
And this table here, this is basically the game plan. It lays it out perfectly. To rebuild your brain structure, you want those phospholipids and good fats from olive oil, avocados, and nuts. To refuel a struggling brain, you need MCTs from things like coconut oil. And to resolve that lingering inflammation, you need the omega-3s from fatty fish and walnuts. See, each type of fat has a very specific and very important job to do. So what does this look like day to day? Well, a fantastic blueprint is something called the Mind Diet. It's a way of eating that was literally designed for brain health, and it's built around all the foods we've been talking about. You've got your olive oil and nuts to rebuild, your fatty fish to resolve, and it's a low-sugar plan that helps avoid that whole energy crisis in the first place. It's really a powerful all-in-one approach to brain recovery.
Which really leaves us with this one powerful idea. We have to stop thinking about the fats we eat as just calories or fuel. For our brain, they are so much more. They are the architects, they are the power source, and they are the cleanup clue. They are the master regulators of recovery. So the real question isn't just if we're eating fats, but are we consciously choosing the right ones to rebuild our own minds,